you guys are having a great night tonight. And I hope that you're excited and ready to study out one of the greatest women in the Bible. Actually, her story is one of my favorite. It's really amazing. Anyways, without further ado, let's go to our scripture. It's in First Samuel in chapter 25. In verse 1 it says, "Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him. And they buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David moved down into the desert of Paran. A certain man in Maon who had property there at Carmel was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was surly and mean in his dealings. He was a Calebite. While David was in the wilderness, he heard Nabal was shearing sheep. So he sent 10 young men and said to them, 'Go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him in my name. Say to him, long life to you, good health to you and your household, and good health to all that is yours. Now I hear that it is sheep shearing time. When your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them. And the whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs was missing. Ask your own servants, and they will tell you. Therefore, be favorable toward my men, since we come at a festive time. Please give your servants and your son David whatever you can find for them.' When David's men arrived, they gave Nabal this message in David's name. Then they waited. Nabal answered David's servants, 'Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and water and the meat I have slaughtered for my shears and give it to men coming from who knows where?' David's men turned around and went back. When they arrived, they reported every word. David said to his men, 'Each of you strap on your sword.' So they did, and David strapped his own as well. About 400 men went up with David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. One of the servants told Abigail, Nabal's wife, 'David sent messengers from the wilderness to give our master his greetings.' But he hurled insults at them. Yet these men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us, and the whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. Night and day, they were a wall around us the whole time we were herding our sheep near them. Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He is such a wicked man that no one can talk to him." You know, this passage has many lessons to learn, especially about David and Nabal. However, tonight we are going to focus about Abigail and her incredible character. So the title of tonight's lesson is Abigail, a Woman of Wisdom. So at this time, Samuel, the great prophet of Israel, had died. And after the Israelites gathered and mourned for him, David moved down into the desert of Paran. And says over here that there was a rich man named Nabal who was harsh and evil. And his wife, Abigail, was completely the opposite. She was intelligent, wise, and had a beautiful appearance. So right here, Bible goes out of its way to contrast the drastic difference between this wicked man and his spiritual wife. And the Bible emphasizes her beauty by using a Hebrew phrase that is preserved for only 2 other women in the Bible. And of course, you know them as Rachel and Esther. You know, Rachel, Esther, and Abigail were beautiful. But it was their wisdom, courage, and faith that truly shaped their legacy. You know, physical beauty may be noticed, but wisdom, courage, and faith make a woman unforgettable. So you might be wondering, how did a woman like her even get stuck in a marriage with a man like Nabal? Well, during this time, marriages were often arranged. So there are many Abigails in our world today who find themselves in a similar circumstance. Not because their marriage was arranged, but because they chose to marry a man who became unrighteous or was never righteous in the first place. However, it is remarkable that despite married to Nabal, Abigail remained a God-fearing woman who was tender and gentle in her sensibilities, high-minded, and noble in her ideas. You know, Abigail proves that no circumstance or situation can excuse our lack of wisdom or ungodliness, because true spirituality is a choice. It is not a condition. So let's get back to the story. So David heard that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So in their culture, sheep shearing time was like a harvest festival. So it is a season of feasting, generosity, and sharing. So ranchers typically opened their homes, offered hospitality, and had plenty to give. And if you could see over here, like Nabal has thousands of goat and thousands of sheep. So Nabal could have easily helped David out. Besides that, David had every reason to expect kindness from Nabal, because David and his men had protected Nabal's shepherds and flocks for a long time. Their protection was valuable because Nabal's wealth was safe because of David. And if you notice, it says that he was a Calebite. Or Calebite. Calebite was from the descendants of Caleb. So Caleb is an amazing guy, a loyal, a brave, and really a guy who has a deep conviction. And it's very opposite of Nabal. And Caleb actually came from the tribe of Judah. And David came from the tribe of Judah as well. So there is more reason for Nabal to be kind and helpful or hospitable to David. They're from the same tribe. And it's impossible for him not to know David because they write all those names in the tribe. And you guys read it many times in the Bible. There's a lot of names. Anyways, so when the sheep shearing season came, David sent 10 young men, politely asking for whatever Nabal was willing to give. David's message was respectful, warm, and humble. And he didn't demand a set amount. He left it to Nabal's generosity. But how did Nabal repay kindness? David's kindness. Well, instead of responding with gratitude, he refused to give David anything except a horrible insult. He pretended not to know David, even though David was famous in Israel because he killed Goliath. Even worse, Abigail later proves Nabal actually did know David, showing that his insult was intentional. In truth, Nabal's stinginess revealed who he was, because he saw his wealth as his own, not the Lord's. So David took the insult personally, which was exactly what Nabal intended to. So enraged, David armed 400 men. Can you imagine it? 400 men coming to your house. He set out to destroy Nabal's household. And actually, right here was not David's finest moment. He reacted out of anger. And it nearly drove him to commit a massacre. Something that possibly he would have later regretted. Unfortunately, Abigail was able to resolve the situation and avoided disaster by responding with great wisdom. So there are two things we can imitate in Abigail's response that will really help us to become a woman of great wisdom. So I will have only 2 points for tonight. Point number 1, women of action. Abigail is a woman of action. Let's continue reading in verse 18. In verse 18 it says, Abigail acted quickly. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, Go on ahead, I'll follow you. But she did not tell her husband, Nabal. Okay, so right here, Abigail was deeply troubled by what had happened and feared the consequences. So she learned that her husband Nabal had treated David rudely. And despite David's kindness in protecting Nabal's shepherds, Nabal responded not with hospitality but with insults. And sadly, Abigail was not surprised, as she had seen his behavior before. And I'm sure that she was already familiar of her husband's selfish and foolish ways. And amazingly, she responded to this challenging situation with immediate action. She did this because she knew this was a dangerous situation. Abigail, fearing that David would seek violent revenge upon her household, knew she had to act quickly. but also prudently. So what is prudence? Prudence actually comes from the Latin word prudentia, which means seeing ahead. So prudence is acting with cautious wisdom and not reacting with impulsive, reckless behavior. So come to think of it, Abigail had practiced prudence for a while. Being married to a man like Nabal, who was often arrogant, stubborn, and ungodly, undoubtedly had forced her to become wise and patient. And ironically, his sin had prepared her to respond without hesitation. She had learned to walk the line of standing up for what is right while still treating Nabal with respect. She had learned when to speak up and when to be silent. And this shows that though unfair or bad things happened to Abigail, God was able to use it for good. It molded her character in the process. She had learned to study people, and in this case, she realized that if David had asked for hospitality for his crew, then they were probably hungry. And so, as you can see, she made delicious food. And not only that, she brought a lot of it. Okay? So having practiced careful judgment before, Abigail combined quick action with thoughtful strategy, showing us how faith, courage, and discernment work hand in hand in times of crisis. But action must be immediate. So the moral of the story is being slow to act can be deadly. So I have a question for you, sisters. Do you have the same urgency to fix a mistake or a wrong in your life? Are you urgent about repenting when you fall short of God's standard? Do you act quickly when you hurt someone? So sisters, I want to challenge you to do 3 things when you become aware that you need to fix something you did wrong. Well, number 1, never react emotionally, which often women do, but always act, not react, act swiftly and proactively. Number 2, always go to God first in prayer, which we often forget that we have God that we can always run to. Number 3, the person you need to talk to, approach the person you need to talk to with humility. Having an intention to win them over rather than winning an argument. So sisters, let's all work to become women of great action. So point number 2, Abigail was a woman of character. So we will continue the long reading in verse 20. In verse 20, it says, excuse me. As she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there were David and his men descending toward her, and she met them. David had just said, "It's been useless, all my watching over this fellow's property in the wilderness so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belong to him." When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him. And as for me, your servant, I did not see the man my lord sent. And now, my lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives, and as you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent on harming my lord be like Nabal. Let this gift which your servant has brought to my lord be given to the men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. When the Lord has fulfilled for my lord every good thing he promised concerning him, and has appointed him ruler over Israel, my lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed, or having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servant. Okay, super long. Anyways, so Abigail has so many great spiritual qualities that make her a woman of high character that we can imitate. Well, number one, she was respectful. Abigail made her appeal with utmost respect. She didn't come to David as a superior, as the beautiful, rich, and privileged women often do. She came to David as a humble servant. And if you notice, he he called David Lord multiple times. And not only that, but Abigail also bowed down and asked for permission to speak rather than taking a command of the conversation. She recognized David's authority and treated him with respect. You know, Abigail mirrored respect where her husband showed disrespect, and humility where he displayed arrogance. So, my question, sisters, are you someone who ends conflict through your respectful communication? Or are you someone who makes conflict worse through your disrespectful attitude? So, sisters, I want you to really answer that question. I want you to reflect it. Number two, Abigail was honest. In verse 25, she admitted her husband's wicked behavior. She refused to be sentimental and cover up for his sin just because they were married. And Abigail refused to become Nabal's sin buddy, even under the heavy social pressures of being a wife in her time. You know, remember, wives were often seen as their husband's property and were expected to obey without question. And yet, Abigail chose to do what was right, not what was convenient. So my question, sisters, when your spouse, and if you don't have spouse, those you are close with choose the wrong path, do you cover for them and excuse their actions? Or do you stand boldly for God, refusing to share in their sins? Number three, Abigail took responsibility. You know, even though she wasn't the one who caused the problem and could have easily just blamed her husband, she acknowledged what she also could have done better and apologized. And you will see right here that right apology can end the fight before even it begins. You know, owning up and offering a simple apology can instantly shift the tone of a hard conversation, as it softens the hearts and opens the doors for healing. And beyond that, it is simply the right thing to do. So my question, sisters, do you take responsibility when you are wrong? Or do you always make excuses and blame others for your mistakes? Lastly, she was selfless. You know, in this entire situation, Abigail thought about everybody else. She thought about her husband and how to fix the problem that he created. She thought of the members of her household who were in danger because of her husband's selfishness. She thought of David and how disrespected he must have felt. You know, Abigail was willing to do anything necessary to fix the situation, and she did not allow her pride or selfishness to hinder her. So, sisters, we need to have Abigail's heart of compassion as we go about the work of the Lord. You know, we have a world of people who are hurting because of sin and the damage it has caused in their lives. You know, the Pharisees looked down on sinners and wouldn't help them, as they used self-righteousness to cover up their selfishness. However, Jesus was exactly the opposite. And like Abigail, he had compassion on sinners and was willing to do anything to help them, even to the point of sacrificing his own life so that they could be saved. Let's be honest, sisters. Each of us wrestles with selfishness in some way. And it has held us back from fully reaching the lost women of Denver. But like Abigail, we are called higher. So I want to challenge each of you to crucify your selfishness. Let's refuse to mask our selfishness with self-righteousness, and instead lay down our lives for the sake of the lost. God has given us an opportunity to do that. Like we have a Women's Day that's upcoming. And it's been a while since we had Women's Day, right? All the thing that we can do is just open our mouth. Just invite them. We don't need to like convert them, do different kind of Bible study. You just need to invite them to the Women's Day. Give the flyers, send the flyers, and then let them come. Let God move their heart. Let the event move their heart, the fellowship. Let them see the kingdom. All the women who has been saved and comforted by God. So, sister, I want to challenge you to help us. Let's help each other to make this Women's Day excellent. Okay? So, let's finish the story. Okay? Let's continue in verse 32 to 42. In verse 32 it says, David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak." Then David accepted from her hand what she had brought him and said, "Go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request." When Abigail went to Nabal, he was in the house holding a banquet like that of a king. He was in a high spirit and very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until daybreak. Then in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him all these things, and his heart failed him and became like a stone. I'm not sure if probably he has a heart attack or get a stroke. I'm not sure. It looks like that. But anyways, in verse 48, about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal and he died. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Praise be to the Lord who has upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with contempt. He has kept his servants from doing wrong and has brought Nabal's wrongdoing down on his own head." Then David sent word to Abigail asking her to become his wife. His servants went to Carmel and said to Abigail, "David has sent us to you to take you to become his wife." She bowed down with her face to the ground and said, "I am your servant, and I am ready to serve you and wash the feet of my Lord's servant." Abigail quickly, so you can tell that she really likes it, quickly got on a donkey and, attended by her 5 female servants, went with David's messengers and became his wife. This is one of amazing story. Abigail's story closes in a triumph. Freed from her foolish husband, she is then able to marry the future king of Israel. Her life reminds us that doing what is right may feel costly at the moment. But in God's hand, it always leads to blessing, honor, and far greater ending that we could ever imagine.